Have you ever wondered, why do I work nonstop yet money still slips away like water flowing through my fingers? Have you ever felt like you're giving your whole life to hard work, yet your financial steps never seem to move forward? You're not alone. I've met thousands of people who share that same concern. And I still remember, in the early years of my career, I was exactly like you. I worked hard, I made money, but I kept none of it. I felt like I was walking in the dark, trying, yet not knowing where I was heading. That was when I realized something simple, yet life-changing. A seed doesn't need anyone to notice it, it only needs to keep growing. And personal finance works the same way. Wealth doesn't begin with applause or big numbers, it begins with quietly controlling every dollar you manage to keep. Real success doesn't come from how much you earn, but from the momentum you silently build each day. And today, I want to share with you the core principles that will help you not only earn money, but keep it, protect it, and turn it into the foundation for your financial freedom. Stay until the end of this video. Because principle number 7 is a secret most people overlook, and it may be the very thing that transforms your entire financial journey. Now, let's begin. Principle 1, it doesn't matter how much you earn. What matters is how much you keep. I once met two men who had the exact same income, same industry, same age, same position, and interestingly, they both received a raise at the same time. Yet just a few years later, their lives split into two completely different paths. One began building assets, had an emergency fund, had investments, while the other still struggled month after month, juggling both large and small expenses. What made the difference? It certainly wasn't income. Their incomes were identical down to the last number. So where did the answer lie? It lay in the fact that one kept his money and the other didn't. I want you to pause for a moment and ask yourself, all these years I've been working, but how much have I actually kept? This question is simple, but it has the power to reshape a person's entire financial destiny. Because wealth isn't measured by the speed at which you earn, but by the speed at which you keep. Most people spend their entire lives racing toward courses that teach them how to make money, trying every possible way to increase income, change careers, change environments, change opportunities. But they often fail to realize higher income doesn't solve the problem if the mindset about keeping money doesn't change. I've seen many people earn double, triple, yet they're no better off than before. Why? Because their spending expands at the exact same pace as their paycheck. It's like pouring water into a bucket with holes. No matter how fast you pour, the water still escapes. The day I understood this, my financial life turned to a new chapter. I stopped asking, how can I make more? And started asking, how can I keep more? That is the question of the wealthy, and the only question self-made people consistently ask themselves. One evening, when I was young and overwhelmed by stacks of bills, I looked at my income number and suddenly realized I wasn't poor because I earned little. I was poor because I had no idea where my money was going. Have you ever felt that way? You work all month, get your paycheck, then look at your balance at the end of the month and ask, where did the money go? That's the moment you realize the problem lies in how you handle even the smallest dollars. Successful people don't chase income, they build discipline. They understand that every dollar they keep today can become a seed for tomorrow's financial freedom. They don't let emotion dictate the fate of their money. They don't let society define their lifestyle. They don't let advertising shape their spending habits. They ask themselves one question: where should this dollar go to serve my future? I made the same mistakes many others make. I spent everything I earned, sometimes even more. But then I learned, money doesn't just disappear, it simply follows whoever knows how to direct it. And when you learn to keep money, you'll feel a level of freedom you've never experienced before. Freedom to choose, freedom to decide, freedom to live by your values. And most importantly, freedom from being controlled by money. Keeping money is your way of telling life, I have a plan, I have discipline, I deserve a better future. And once you truly understand this principle, I want you to ask yourself another question, one I often ask my younger students. If I keep living the way I live now, in 5 years, will my finances change or stay the same? Only when you answer this question honestly will you be ready for the next principle, the one that reveals what's silently draining your money every single day. Principle 2, the 3 enemies eating your money. Inflation, taxes, lifestyle creep. When I was young, I used to think that earning more money would automatically make all financial problems disappear. But life doesn't work that simply, because alongside every dollar you earn, there are silent enemies eroding it no matter how hard you work. Those 3 enemies are inflation, taxes, and lifestyle creep. I remember once talking to an old friend. He proudly told me he had just gotten a raise and believed life would be easier. But a few months later, when we met again, he complained, "Jim, I can't save a single dollar. My salary is higher, but the end of the month still looks empty." I looked at him and simply said, "It's not the raise that made you poorer. It's the three enemies in the shadows taking most of what you try to keep. The first enemy is inflation. It's like termites eating through wood. You don't see them, you don't hear them, but one day you discover your favorite table has rotted from the inside. Inflation works the same way. It erodes your purchasing power bit by bit. You earn $1,000, but its real value isn't what it used to be." Successful people understand this and always seek ways to protect their money from time's erosion. Others simply feel like everything gets more expensive every year while their wallet gets thinner. The second enemy is taxes. Not in a negative or illegal sense, but in the understanding that taxes are part of financial life. People who don't understand taxes often let them take up a huge portion of their income without optimizing legally. Successful people, however, know how to plan, where to invest, what to record, and what to adjust so their money stays with them as long as possible. Taxes aren't an enemy to fight, they're an enemy to understand and handle wisely. The third enemy, and the most dangerous, is lifestyle creep. This is the one I've seen destroy more people than anything else. When income rises, they feel they deserve more. A nicer car, a new phone, fancier meals. But they don't realize increasing spending faster than income will make them poorer no matter how much they earn. I've seen people make far more money than I did at the time, yet they never saved even a small emergency fund. Because every time their salary increased, their lifestyle increased with it. They thought spending more was a sign of success, but in reality, it was only a sign of lacking discipline. Think of these three enemies as three currents pulling you backward. If you don't know they're there, you'll work twice or three times as hard, yet stay in the same place. But once you recognize them, you begin to understand keeping money isn't a battle with income, it's a battle with leakage. I ignored this principle when I was young. I blamed my job, my salary, my circumstances, everything except myself. But when I stopped blaming and began taking responsibility for every dollar I kept, my finances started to change. I learned this. You're not poor because you earn little, you're poor because you don't know what's taking money out of your pocket every day. So the question for you today is, how much of your income are these three enemies taking from you? If you can't answer, it means you're not truly in control of your finances. And once you've identified these enemies in the shadows, I want to take you to an even more powerful image, a metaphor I believe will stay with you for life. Because if you don't understand the next principle, no matter how much you earn, your financial life will always feel like you're running on sinking sand. Principle 3, the leaky bucket. You can't fill up your finances if your money is still leaking out. I want to share with you an image that I believe, if you truly understand it, you will never look at money the same way again. Imagine you're trying to pour water into a bucket. You scoop water, you pour it in, you work hard to fill the bucket up. But when you look down, the water level is still as low as before. You pour more and more. But every time you look again, the result hasn't changed much. And then you realize the bottom of the bucket is leaking. Our personal finances work exactly the same way. You can earn more, work harder, stay up late, and get up early. But if your finances have holes, then no matter how hard you try, that bucket will never be full. I once watched a man work 2 jobs at the same time. He was proud that his income was higher than his peers. But when an unexpected event hit, the car broke down, his child got sick, or some sudden expense appeared, he had absolutely no emergency fund. He said, "Jim, I work nonstop but have nothing left." I looked at him and simply said, "You don't have an income problem, you have a bucket problem." The leaks in each person's financial bucket are not the same. Some people leak money through emotional spending, shopping when they're sad, under pressure, or trying to prove something. Some people leak because they don't track their spending, they have no idea where their money goes. Some people leak because small debts pile up into big debts, tiny loans with interest rates that are anything but tiny. Some people leak because of the whatever habit, spending a few dollars here and there every day that add up to a big amount by the end of the month. Once, I asked a group of young students, "Do you know why rich people always seem so calm?" One of them replied, "Because they have a lot of money." I smiled and said, "No, because their bucket doesn't leak." They don't let their mind be controlled by small leaks. They know where every stream of money is going. They know which habits to keep and which habits to change. And they know that strong finances don't start with the speed of making money, but with the ability to keep it. I remember a period in my life when I worked so much that I felt I deserved a reward every time I got paid. I bought things I didn't need with money I didn't really have to impress people who didn't care at all. That was one of the biggest leaks in my financial bucket. And when I stopped and looked it straight in the eye, I realized money doesn't disappear, it just flows exactly where I allow it to flow. Successful people never let a small leak turn into a big one. They check their bucket regularly. They put discipline above emotion. They understand that every dollar leaking out today is an opportunity lost tomorrow. And most importantly, they fix the bottom of the bucket before pouring more water in. They don't try to earn more just to make up for the leakage. They don't try to work harder to patch holes with blind effort. They understand that keeping is the root of wealth. I learned this in a very quiet moment of my life. I sat alone in a small room, looked at my notebook, and asked myself, how much of the money I earn actually belongs to me? The answer stunned me. But it was also the moment that marked my maturity in financial thinking. That was when I started fixing my own bucket one leak at a time. So I want to ask you, where is your bucket leaking? The sooner you answer this question, the sooner you'll begin your journey to financial freedom. And now, before we move on to the next principle, I want to pause for a brief but very important moment. If you feel these principles truly resonate with you, hit subscribe to continue this journey with me, where we'll explore lessons that can change the way you earn money and keep money every single day. Principle 4, the transformation story. The man who kept 30% of his income. I want to share with you a story that has stayed with me for many years. A story that every time I recall it, I clearly see the power of small changes backed by great discipline. It's the story of a man who came to see me after a seminar. He spoke with a face that was both tired and defeated. Jim, I work hard, I earn the level of income I once dreamed of, but at the end of the month, I don't see anything left. I don't understand why. I looked at him, a typical man of modern society, intelligent, diligent, responsible, but swept up in a financial spiral he didn't even realize he was in. I asked him 3 simple questions. How much do you earn? How much do you spend? And how much do you keep? He answered the first question immediately. He hesitated with the second, and he was completely silent for the third. That silence said more than any number could. I told him, you don't need to earn more. You need to keep better. We started analyzing each small expense in one of his months, not to judge, but to observe. I believe that when you observe closely enough, life itself will give you the answer. And then he realized his income wasn't low at all. His money was leaking in places he'd never noticed before. A few meals out, a few seemingly small items, a few spending habits with no real purpose. I asked him to try something very simple. Split his income into 3 parts and keep 30% the moment he got paid. Don't wait until the end of the month. Don't wait to see what's left. I said, if you wait until the end of the month to keep money, there will be nothing left to keep. Keep it first, then spend what remains. That's what successful people do. He worried, but if I do that, I'll be short on money for necessary expenses. I smiled. It's not that you'll be short. You just haven't forced yourself to prioritize yet. And he agreed to try for just 90 days. On the first day, he opened a separate account and transferred 30% of his salary into it. On the second day, everything still felt normal. On the 10th day, he started noticing he was spending less carelessly. On the 30th day, he was surprised to see he could still live just fine while keeping 30%. On the 90th day, he came back to see me. His face was different, lighter, more confident, and most importantly, he had savings that he had never had in all his working years. Jim, I did it. I kept 30%. I looked at him and replied, it's not because your income changed, it's because you changed. What impressed me wasn't the 30% figure. It was the way he began to control his money instead of letting it control him. When someone learns to keep money, they don't just change their finances, they change their mindset, their emotions, their habits, and their future. I once told a group of young students, you can stay stuck your whole life if you never learn how to keep the results you create, and this man's story is proof of that. One small change, keeping first, spending later, can become the turning point of an entire financial journey. So I want to ask you, if you kept 10%, then 20%, then 30%, how different would your life be? As long as you start, as long as you stay consistent, I believe you'll see what that man saw. Freedom begins with discipline. And this is the natural bridge that leads us to the next principle, the golden principle of the wealthy, the principle that creates the biggest difference between two groups of people. One group only makes money, and the other group keeps it. Principle 5, keep first, spend later. The golden rule of the wealthy. If there were only one financial principle I could have everyone in the world deeply understand, it would be this. The wealthy always keep money first and spend later. The poor do the opposite. They spend first and hope there will be something left at the end of the month. But in reality, there's never anything left. I've watched this rule play out over and over throughout my entire career. Every time I talk to a successful person, they share the same thing. They don't let life decide how much they keep, they decide. And they decide from the moment money is created, not when the month is almost over and the wallet is almost empty. I once asked a successful entrepreneur, "What helped you become wealthy the most?" He gave me a sentence I'll never forget. "Jim, I treat keeping money like a bill I have to pay, but it's a bill I pay to my own future." Successful people always understand that the future doesn't appear on its own. It is funded by discipline in the present. They don't ask, "How much do I have left to save?" They ask, "How much must I keep to secure my future?" That's why the rule of pay yourself first is always the foundation of any financial system. When you keep first, you send a powerful message to yourself. I deserve safety. I deserve a better future. I deserve to move forward. Most people's problem is that they put their priorities in the wrong place. They pay for everything else first. Bills, shopping, wants, emotions, and in the end, there's nothing left for themselves. I used to be like that. I remember in the early days, when I got my paycheck, I felt like I had an entire world to spend. I spent on things I didn't need, to impress people who didn't care. And by the end of the month, I realized I hadn't kept a single dollar. That was when I understood money isn't the problem. Habits are. Look at the people around you. Some have modest incomes but still stay stable, still save, still move forward year after year. Some have better incomes but still struggle, still drown in debt, still live in stress. The difference isn't in the number written on their employment contract, it's in what happens immediately after they receive the first dollar of the month. The wealthy put the future first. The poor put emotions first. The wealthy pay themselves first. The poor pay for everything else first and hope the future will somehow take care of itself. But the future never takes care of itself. The future belongs only to those who take care of it starting today. I once told my students, the faster you learn to keep first, the faster you escape the financial treadmill. And the beautiful thing is, this rule doesn't require you to earn a lot of money. It only requires you to change the order of your priorities. Keeping 10% is fine. Keeping 5% is fine. The important thing isn't the number, it's the system. Once you've built the keep first, spend later system, your finances will begin to change in a stable, sustainable, and powerful way. I remember a female student once asked me, "Jim, if I keep money first, will I run out of money?" I smiled. "No. You'll just force yourself to spend more wisely. When you keep money first, every spending decision becomes clearer. You buy fewer meaningless things. You can tell the difference between real needs and temporary emotions. You begin to feel a kind of freedom, the kind that only comes when you know you're in control of your own life." And I want you to reflect on this. How many years have you been spending first and hoping whatever is left will rescue you? If today you change that order with just one small action, you'll start to see your future becoming brighter, more secure, and more sustainable. Because this very principle will lead you to a simple yet powerful money management system, one that most financially free people apply. The 3-slot rule. Principle 6. The 3-slot rule: living, investing, long-term accumulation. When I started getting serious about personal finance, I realized my problem wasn't how much I earned or how much I spent. It was that I didn't have any clear financial structure at all. Money came and went like wind over a desert. It brushed past me for a moment, then disappeared without leaving a trace. Until I learned one of the simplest yet most powerful systems I've ever applied, the 3-slot rule. I still remember one afternoon, I was sitting with a friend, a self-made man, who started from nothing, yet lived calmly and comfortably even though his income wasn't particularly high. I asked him, "What's your secret?" He smiled and said, "Jim, I just need 3 slots. 3 small compartments that saved me from a lifetime of financial chaos." I was surprised. And then he explained, "From that day on, I applied this system for myself and then shared it with thousands of students. And every time they came back and told me they had changed, I became even more convinced that sometimes simplicity is what creates the greatest power. Those 3 slots are living, investing, long-term accumulation. The first slot, living. This is the part for essential needs: food, daily expenses, transportation, healthcare, the things needed to keep life running steadily. Many people have only one single slot, and they throw everything into it: consumption, desires, emotions, even unplanned investments. And when everything is in one big basket, they lose control. But when you separate living into its own slot, you immediately see what is truly necessary, what you think you need but don't, what you can optimize without lowering your quality of life. Successful people don't live in an extreme way. They simply live consciously. The second slot, investing, this is where money makes money. Not reckless investing, not chasing hot returns, but investing based on knowledge, discipline, and time. I once said, don't work only for money. Make money work for you. And to make money work, you need a dedicated slot for it. Without an investing slot, you'll always be stuck in the cycle of work, spend, and never create real growth. Some wealthy people even allocate 10%, 15%, or even 20% of their income to this slot. But the most important thing isn't the percentage, it's the consistency. Every dollar you put into this slot today can become tens or hundreds of dollars in the future if you treat it like a seed that needs steady care. The third slot, long-term accumulation. This is where you build safety, peace of mind, and the foundation for financial freedom. Not for spending, not for maybe I'll dip into it if I need to, but to protect your future. I call this slot the distance between you and fear. Because when you have long-term accumulation, you're no longer shaken by an unexpected bill, a small incident, or a change at work. You have a shield that helps you stand firm when life gets stormy. I once met a woman who lived very simply but was always calm. One day I asked her, "What makes you so confident?" She replied, "Jim, I have enough long-term savings that I no longer fear what might happen next month." A very simple sentence, but it contains the inner strength of someone who knows they're standing on solid ground. When you put money into these 3 slots, you shift from being a reactive person to being a proactive one. You are no longer pushed around by life, you start steering your own life. And the most wonderful thing is, this system works for every income level. Whether you earn $500, $1,000, or $10,000 a month, these 3 slots still hold true. Because it doesn't just manage money, it manages your mindset. I want you to ask yourself, if today I divided my income into 3 slots, how would my life change after 1 year? I believe the answer will surprise you. And now that you have a clear financial structure, it's time to move on to a more refined principle. A principle that the wealthy always use to ensure every dollar in their wallet serves the right purpose. Principle 7, optimizing spending choices. Every dollar must have a job. I once told a group of young students, you will get rich faster when you start respecting every dollar you spend. Not respect in the sense of being stingy, but in understanding that every dollar you use today carries a task, a purpose, a journey, and if you spend it without knowing where it's going, then you're letting your future fall into the hands of luck. A wealthy person doesn't spend money carelessly. They spend strategically. They don't ask, what do I want right now? They ask, is this dollar serving my long-term goals? I remember once seeing a young man buy an expensive watch just to impress his friends. When I asked him why he bought it, he answered, because I like it, and because everyone else is buying one. His answer told me one thing. His money had no job, it only had emotion. Successful people are the opposite. They know clearly which dollars are for maintaining life, which dollars are for supporting work, which dollars are for accumulation, which dollars are for investing, which dollars can generate returns, and which dollars shouldn't even exist on this month's bill. That's not harshness. That's the mindset of someone who knows what they're building. One evening, I sat in my small room and reviewed each expense I made that month. I was surprised to see that nearly 20% of what I spent brought no value at all to my life. It didn't make me healthier, didn't teach me anything, didn't move me any closer to my goals. It just came and went because I hadn't assigned it any job. When you don't assign your money a job, your money will follow your emotions. But when you do assign it a job, you'll see 3 things happen. 1, you spend less. 2, you spend better. 3, you spend with confidence because you know you're doing something useful. I once said, if you don't assign your dollars a job, someone else will spend them for you. And this is truer than I thought. The market, advertising, trends, friends, all of them want to help you spend money, but none of them will take responsibility for your future, only you will. An older entrepreneur once shared with me, Jim, I never spend money just because it's cheap. I only spend when it's needed. That's the sentence I wish everyone would understand. Because sometimes the cheapest thing is actually the most expensive. Expensive because it takes away the opportunity for something more important. The wealthy don't spend less than the poor. They just spend more purposefully. They clearly distinguish between what is a need, what is a want, what is a temporary emotion. They don't let a sad day turn into an expensive bill. They don't let a conversation with friends become a race to see who spends more. They don't buy things they don't need to impress people they don't know. And most importantly, they don't buy happiness through consumption. They build happiness through value. I want you to reflect on a very important question. When was the last time you spent money without knowing what purpose it served? A small question, but answering it will show you where your financial bucket is leaking. When you start assigning a job to every dollar, whether it's $1 or $100, your financial life will become clearer than ever. You'll find yourself calmer, more confident, and less shaken by temptations around you. Because you no longer spend money to fill emotional gaps. You spend money to build your future. And that is the bridge that leads us to the next principle, a principle about the most dangerous hidden enemy in financial life, emotional spending. Principle 8, eliminating emotional spending, the silent thief of your wallet. There is a very dangerous thief in everyone's financial life. It doesn't break doors, it doesn't smash safes, it doesn't leave traces. It comes in the moments when you're at your weakest and leaves before you even realize what you've lost. That thief is emotional spending. I've met many people with good incomes, even very good incomes, who still always feel like they never have enough. And when I look at their financial habits, I see a common pattern. They don't spend because they need to, they spend because of emotion. Sad, they spend. Stressed, they spend. Bored, they spend. Feel like others are ahead of them, they spend again. I remember a woman who came to see me after a talk. She said, Jim, I don't understand why I never have any money left over. I don't buy luxury items. I'm not wasteful. But when I asked her to record her spending for a week, the truth stood out clearly. She didn't buy big things, but she constantly bought small things to compensate for her emotions. A cup of coffee to reward myself for a tiring day. A new outfit to feel more confident. A little item to feel less sad. Those things aren't wrong. But when emotion is in the driver's seat, you pay with your future. Emotional spending is the biggest leak in the financial bucket because it's not about the price, it's about the frequency. A $20 purchase isn't scary, but $20 repeated 30 times a month, that's a different story. Successful people don't let emotion decide their financial fate. They understand that emotion is a terrible driver, and if you let it take the wheel, you'll go off the road very quickly. Let me tell you a short story. There was an office worker I used to coach. Every time he felt down, he would go to the mall, walk around to clear his mind, and every time he came home with a shopping bag, when I asked him why he bought things, he said, Jim, I don't know. I just feel lighter afterward. I looked at him and said, that's not shopping. That's you trying to buy back the peace you've lost. But there's a truth I want you to remember for life. You cannot buy peace with money. You only delay your worries for a moment. But your wallet pays the real price. Emotional spending doesn't just take your money, it takes your sense of control, your confidence, and your ability to think long term. It keeps you living in a feeling of scarcity, no matter how much your income increases. Successful people know this. They don't suppress their emotions, but they don't use money to soothe them. Instead of spending to cover sadness, they go for a walk, read, talk to someone, exercise, write down their feelings, or simply sit quietly with themselves. They understand that emotions need to be processed, not bribed. Once I asked myself, how many times in my life have I spent money to fix a feeling of emptiness? The answer startled me, and I decided that if my life was going to change, it had to start with how I faced my emotions, not with new bills. I want you to ask yourself today, if I stopped spending to soothe my emotions, how would my life be different? I believe you'll see a new door open, the door of awareness, control, and freedom. And once you understand the power of managing your emotions, you're ready to move on to the next principle, a principle that sums up the entire journey of keeping money into a single powerful lesson. Keeping money is harder than making money. Principle 9, keeping money is harder than making money. I used to think the hardest part of personal finance was making money. But the more years I've lived and the more people from all walks of life I've met, the more I've realized a deeper truth. Making money is hard, but keeping money is even harder. Because making money requires skill, but keeping money requires character. Making money needs strategy, but keeping money needs discipline. Making money depends on opportunity, but keeping money depends on habits repeated every single day. And that difference creates two very distinct groups of people. One group constantly starts over from zero. The other quietly moves farther every year, even though they're not loud about it. I remember once talking with a man who had a very high income. He was intelligent, hardworking, and extremely skilled in his field, but he said to me, "Jim, I don't understand. I make more than most people I know, but my finances are always under pressure." I asked him, "Are you trying to make more, or are you learning how to keep what you already have?" He went silent, just like many others have when I asked that question. People love to praise talent and income, but very few talk about discipline and restraint. Everyone wants to make more. Few want to learn how to live properly within what they already have. Everyone wants to speed up. Few want to learn how to plug the leaks before pouring more water into the bucket. I've seen many people earn double, triple, even 10 times their old income, but their life doesn't really get better. It just gets more expensive. Because the real issue isn't that too little money comes in, it's that too little money stays. Keeping money is hard because it requires you to win against yourself. Win against the need to show off. Win against comparing yourself to others. Win against short-term emotions. Win against unconscious spending habits. Win against the temptation of things that are just a few bucks. You can't keep money with luck. You keep money with awareness. I once told a group of young entrepreneurs, "You think income is proof of success, but to me, the ability to keep money is proof of mindset." Because keeping money is not a passive act. It's an art, a discipline, a way of living. Keeping money means you know what's important and what isn't. It means you understand the value of each dollar, not by its amount, but by its mission. Keeping money means you dare to say no to things others consider normal so you can say yes to the future you want to build. A small story. Once I asked a young man why he had no savings even though he had been working for many years. He answered, "Jim, I spend it all on life." I asked him back, "Are you spending on life or on habits?" He lowered his head because deep down, he knew the answer. I was once like that too. I used to think that as long as I made more, everything would be fine. But when I started observing more closely, I realized I didn't have an income problem, I had a mindset problem. I had to learn how to keep the value I created. I had to learn how to respect the money I earned. I had to learn how to see finances as a tool, not a burden. And when I did that, my life changed, not loudly, but steadily, sustainably, and deeply. I want you to ask yourself, in the past 5 years, have I moved forward or just run in place? If the answer makes you think, don't worry. Because recognizing the truth is the first step to changing the truth. And once you understand the power of keeping money, you're ready for the final principle, the principle that sums up everything we've talked about from the beginning. You're not rich because of the money you make, but because of the money you keep. Principle 10, you're not rich because of how much you make, but because of how much you keep. I want you to pause for a moment and think very carefully about this. If you can't keep the results of your efforts, all your hard work flows away like water slipping through your hands. Wealth doesn't begin with big numbers on your paycheck. Wealth begins with your ability to keep what you create. You might earn $1,000, $3,000, $10,000 a month, but if you keep 0%, the result is still zero. And I've seen this happen to so many people. They work hard, they really do make money, but in the end, they still live with a feeling of scarcity, not because their income isn't enough, but because their mindset for keeping money isn't enough. One time, I was having coffee with a man who had gone bankrupt twice. He said to me, "Jim, I don't understand why I keep failing even though I make a lot of money." I asked him, "How much do you keep?" He laughed, but it was a sad laugh. Sometimes I didn't keep anything at all. And I told him something I also want you to understand very clearly. Wealth doesn't come from the speed at which you make money. Wealth comes from the habit of keeping money. Successful people know that wealth is not built from one big push, but from small steps, steady and repeated day after day. They don't wait until they make more to start keeping. They keep from the very first dollar. They keep when their income is still low. They keep when life is still tough. They keep when others think it's not worth it. And it's that consistency that makes the difference. I once saw a single mother with a very modest income, but simply because she kept 15% every month for many years, she built up an amount of wealth that surprised many people who earned more than she did. Not because she made a lot, but because she kept steadily. Keeping money creates three things that making money alone cannot. 1. Safety. You're no longer afraid of unexpected events. 2. Confidence. You know you're moving forward each month. 3. Freedom. You have the power to choose your work, your life, and how you want to live. These are things no high salary can give you unless you know how to keep a portion of it for your future. I often tell my students, keeping money is how you show respect for yourself. You're telling your future, I am preparing. You're telling life, I'm ready to take responsibility. You're telling yourself, I deserve a better future. And that financial self-respect, that belief, will take you very far. Look at the journey we've taken from the beginning until now. You've learned the difference between making money and keeping money. You've identified the three silent enemies that eat away at your finances. You've understood the leaky bucket, seen the power of the story of the man who kept 30%. You've learned the golden rule of keep first, spend later. You've built the three-slot structure, learned to assign every dollar a job, and eliminated emotional spending. All of these principles lead to one common point. You are only truly rich when you keep what you create. Now, I want you to ask yourself one question. Starting tomorrow, what percentage of my income will I begin to keep? You don't need to start big. You just need to start, because one day you'll look back and say, I'm grateful I started that day. And this is the perfect moment for us to move to the final part, where I'll help you summarize the entire journey and leave you with a powerful, profound message about financial freedom. As we come to the end of today's journey, I want you to spend one quiet minute reflecting on what you've just learned. Not with logic, but with awareness. Because wealth doesn't begin with the number in your bank account, it begins with the moment you realize you have the power to control your financial life. You've seen keeping money is an art of discipline, an art of being proactive, an art of daring to say no to short-term emotions so you can say yes to long-term future. We've gone through 10 principles, from recognizing the importance of how much you keep, to understanding the enemies that eat away at your finances, patching the leaky bucket, keeping first, spending later, building 3 financial slots, eliminating emotional spending, and finally arriving at the most important truth. You're not rich because of how much you make, but because of how much you keep. If there's one thing you carry with you today, I hope it's determination. Start with 5%, then 10%, then 20%. Start small, but start now. The future waits for no one, but it always favors those who prepare. And if you feel these principles speak to you, if you want to continue the journey of becoming a better version of yourself every day, hit like, hit subscribe, and share this video with someone you want to see walking more firmly in life. I also have a question for you, a question I hope you'll answer honestly. What percentage of your income will you keep starting this very month? Leave a comment below. I'll read every line you share. And as always, I want to end the video with one of my own quotes. A quote that changed the way I look at financial freedom. It's not what you earn that makes you rich, it's what you keep. Thank you for staying until the end of the video. See you again on the next journey with Rohn Treasures.